Fortunately, we were lucky enough to not have a strenuous, heavy load that required finite element analysis. Yes, we did do a finite element analysis, but we didn't put it into our PowerPoint due to the fact that we had so many groups before us that had it. Does that answer your question?
Well, do you know how much load that experienced?
We calculated out a 600-pound manure load for our scraper and applied that load to a finite element analysis, which gave us great results with plenty of room to go. Any other questions? One of you two gentlemen?
Yeah, two questions. First, how did you choose your team uniform?
Well, since we all work so well as a group, we thought we might as well look well as a group as well. So it's kind of all came together.
Real quick, I guess two. One is, can you comment on what needs they might have as far as keeping the chain and the limit switches clean and operable against corrosion or just getting jammed up because they're in manure? And you also mentioned using some steel and also Delrin. And I wondered where the Delrin was in your design. I didn't catch where that was.
Sure. So with the chain and limit switch issue, the limit switches are inside the barn, so they don't really see weather too much, and they are sealed component. They're an electromechanical switch, so the mechanical part of it doesn't really interfere with it. The electric probe never really sees the cow manure and whatnot. And with the chain, it is a steel chain. Other than maybe greasing it once in a while, I mean, the manure will act as a natural lubricant, so that doesn't require all that much attention. And then with the Delrin, the way the rail slider, I guess you could call it, slides on top of the I-beam, we surrounded all the steel parts with the Delrin to make sure it slid well, as Delrin's a natural lubricant.
Another to go off that question, in the specification list that we came up with, we outlined if they wanted housing, which was preferable, then that's something that they would create for themselves. So they were going to create a housing which would go around the motor inside the barn, and then another housing that would go over the sprocket that sits outside. And then all the sprockets themselves and bearings have grease points for regular use.
Well, I sort of two questions. One is, it seems like the friction of that thing running down that is a pretty key parameter that might have been hard to know at first. So how did you handle that when you had to figure out what sort of horsepower you needed to pull that along? Because that's did you guess that, or did you test something? And also, I guess, when you're pulling down the force, I guess you made that long enough, but the sort of the cocking of that thing on the beam could cause problems in terms of binding up. And did you have to handle that in your design, or how did you address that issue? Because you're pulling on one side of it. When you have a linear translator, you pull on one side of it.
Right. One thing about the friction is the floor has rubber mats which are flat and flush, and the scraper, it has a little bit of clearance just above it and then kind of slants down onto the mat. So the friction wasn't a very, which you would think would be a very big part of it, didn't actually end up being one because of the way we designed it, because on the right side next to the scraper housing, it had a little lift to it, so the only side that would be dragging was the left side a little bit, but it wasn't anything that was too daunting. And then on the left side, where we have a little roller right there, that would ride along the concrete of the raised platform. So that smoothed it out so it wasn't twisting the whole unit. So because it was a long housing on the I-beam, there wasn't as much twist to it, and the Delrin helped with that because it's self-lubricating, which allowed it to slide along the scraper or the I-beam much smoother. Any other questions?
Back to your question, just to point out the Delrin a little better here. It is this inner piece here. Unfortunately, it's all in gray, thanks to SolidWorks. But all the contact points around the I-beam are where the Delrin is. So any more questions? Anything like that? Yes.
So how did you fasten the Delrin in there? How is it?
Along the sides here, there are these holes here. So we used threaded inserts on the Delrin, so those are held there. And then the top here, we have recessed pop rivets, so that they can be replaced if need be eventually. Any more questions? All right, well, thank you very much. This is our last presentation, so thank you again for coming.